The U.S. and China have begun high-level talks, the first under the Biden administration.
Both sides are looking to reset their icy ties, strained over a slew of issues. But the two stand far apart on trade, territorial disputes, human rights, and more.
Now, they were frank in their remarks at the start of their two-day meeting in Anchorage, Alaska. China warning the U.S. not to interfere in its internal affairs, while the Americans arguing for rules-based order, criticizing the Chinese over its policies on Xinjiang, Hong Kong, Taiwan, and cyber attacks.
所以，美国现在需要的是改变自己的形象，而不是推广自己的所谓民主。
We do not seek conflict, but we welcome stiff competition, and we will always stand up for our principles, for our people, and for our friends.
We spoke with Olivia Seong, who told us whether there's room at all for the Chinese to compromise given the atmosphere of the talks.
There's going to be no compromise on certain issues that China considers its red lines. And that's clearly where the problem lies, and it shows just how far apart these two countries are. And from some of the early reports that we see coming out from the press pool that was in the room for the start of those meetings, we can see that there are already dramatic and tense scenes playing out there. Tweets from some of the reporters inside say that, journalists had been asked to leave the room at first, but were later called back as the Chinese side wanted to have its say. And China's top diplomat Yang Jiechi asking, if this is the way the U.S. had hoped to conduct this dialogue, adding that the U.S. isn't qualified to speak to China from a position of strength. And we also can see from some of the videos that are coming out from that room that Mr. Yang had said through a translator that it was his bad not to remind the U.S. side to watch its tone in its opening remarks. So perhaps not a very good start to these meetings in Alaska. And if you're talking about compromise, China has repeatedly said that it is going to make clear its position, and there are certain issues that it considers its red lines. And these are issues relating, for example, to Taiwan, to Hong Kong, as well as alleged human rights abuses in Xinjiang, all of which are issues that the U.S. is taking up with China. But China is saying that these are its internal affairs and that the U.S. should not be meddling in it. And the foreign ministry, China's foreign ministry prior to this, has also said that the U.S. should not doubt the Chinese government's unwavering ability to defend its core interests and interests of national security and sovereignty as well. And so it's hard to see how they will be willing to compromise on these issues. The Chinese side has also said that in the past that it hopes to see the U.S. roll back on some of its policies that had been introduced under the Trump administration. We're talking about tariffs on some of these Chinese goods as well as sanctions on Chinese companies. And that perhaps will be tabled at these meetings, but it's hard to see how both sides can meet each other halfway.